Oh, the second hand. Thank you to our funders, our sponsors, our individuals, and our community members who support our work every day.
Today's event is an emotional one for me because it's my last one as president of the Metropolitan Planning Council. I came to MPC 25 years ago to help build a better, bolder, more equitable future for everyone. And through each complex challenge we've tackled together, my amazing coworkers, dedicated board members, and numerous allies have inspired me and changed me. MPC has evolved a lot as an organization since 1996. We've quadrupled in size, which has made it possible for us to take on new issues and to say yes to requests from our community and public sector friends. If the past 18 months of a pandemic, coupled with economic, social, and political upheaval has you questioning our region's potential, take note of some of our accomplishments. Together, we've rerouted Lakeshore Drive lanes to create the first public green space known as a museum campus. We designed the most impactful employer-assisted housing initiative replicated by 15 other states and regions. We heard from 6,000 Chicagoans about crafting a Great River Chicago vision for 150 miles of riverfront. And we've quantified the unacceptably high cost of segregation to all of us. Our current priorities center equity, who we link arms with, where we direct our energies and resources, and which bold policy issues we take on. MPC's team, including its next leader, need you to continue to make progress. Progress on using new performance metrics to wisely deploy $45 billion in new state infrastructure resources we helped secure in 2019. Progress on replacing lead water pipes so that every Illinois family has clean water and every child's brain can develop to its full potential. Progress on helping the City of Chicago incorporate the wisdom of local communities in the first citywide plan since 1966. Our program today is a microcosm about why I'm bullish about Chicagoland's future. You'll be welcomed by our stellar board chair, Melissa Washington, one of 11 chairs I've been really lucky to learn from. You'll hear from Scott Swanson and Carol Brown of PNC Bank, our presenting sponsor for more than a dozen years. They exemplify corporate engagement in healthier communities. You'll be inspired, I promise, by the work of our bold community advocates who refuel my commitment, our commitment, to a more resilient, just, and vibrant region. And you'll be wowed by our Champion Fighter awardee, Marty Nesbitt, who's using his voice and modeling what each of us must do to build a more equitable future. I'm overflowing with gratitude for each of you and for all that our generous sponsors have made possible. You believe in MPC's unique ability to make positive change. As I take on new challenges, I will remain a forever friend of MPC. We are an unparalleled force for good. Thank you so much for being here today. We are truly better together.
At PNC Bank, our model is built around strengthening the communities we serve, which is why we cherish our long-standing relationship with the Metropolitan Planning Council. For over a decade, we've stood by MPC because they nurture a powerful civic commitment across sectors and leverage to get big things done.
I joined the MPC board because MPC brings great minds and hearts together to solve our toughest problems. Like PNC, MPC works hard to boost the quality of life in low-income areas through access to affordable housing and economic revitalization, both key elements in achieving racial equity. Together, we know that if we invest in our cultural assets, like the stunning museum campus, it will enrich all of us.
You know, the wonderful thing about MPC is that there are many ways to get involved as donors, advisors, and advocates of its work. Mary Sue, thank you for your service to our great city and region over the last 25 years. It's been my great privilege to partner with you and your team as an executive advisor, sharing a constant focus on how we need to plan for tomorrow.
From all of us at PNC, thank you for inspiring us to build upon your legacy and continue to unleash the greatness of our region. Thanks again, Mary Sue, for your leadership and commitment to the Chicagoland area.
Thank you, Mary Sue.
On May 31st, thanks to the leadership of State Representative Lamont Robinson and Senator Melinda Bush, the Lead Service Line Replacement and Notification Act passed out of the Illinois General Assembly with bipartisan support. And in August, Governor Pritzker signed it into law.
I personally feel that is such a big victory.
This is a great win. This is a big time, big moment for us, and we're excited.
This great victory that's going to improve the lives of people throughout the state.
It's landmark legislation, right? I mean, it's nation leading.
This is a huge win for Illinois and cause for celebration.
The legislation we're celebrating today is such a major win for clean water in Illinois and will encourage every water utility to find and replace every lead service line in the state. At the national level, we're hard at work on this issue as well. My Drinking Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Act was included in the bipartisan infrastructure deal that passed the Senate and would provide funding to communities across the country to improve our drinking and wastewater systems.
Sometimes people think clean drinking water issues only impact certain communities, or they hear about crises that happen in other states.
The Flint, Michigan crisis reminded us once again that clean drinking water for everyone needs to be a top priority. Experts tell us that no amount of lead in drinking water is safe to consume. And yet, due to decades of bad decision making, Illinois has more water service lines made of lead than any other state in the country. Illinois has over 686,000 known lead service lines and up to an additional 1 million service lines of an unknown material composition that could be made of lead.
What we know is that people throughout the state of Illinois have a very real threat.
When we find out about the detrimental effects of lead in water, how it affects our children, it was a big concern for us childcare providers. How more years, how more times, how more decades are we going to keep on poisoning our kids?
This legislation is such a big deal because it tackles so many lead service lines and it does it right. It requires every water utility to find and replace every lead service line in the state. And it bans a dangerous practice known as partial lead service line replacement, which can actually elevate lead in drinking water.
When we started thinking about the language of the bill, there were several great minds that sat together to talk about how we bring opportunity to those communities that have been affected the most by lead service lines.
When we think about, implementing this work in an equitable manner, we have to think about where are the lead service lines located.
This is an environmental justice issue. Black and Latinx Illinoisans are twice as likely as white Illinoisans to be living in municipalities with nearly all of this toxic infrastructure.
I think we have a very good chance, to start spreading the word. Yeah, we can start with childcare providers because we have direct contact with a lot of families. Educating these families, letting them know, the lead in water is not just a problem in the houses of childcare programs. It is everywhere, with my neighbors, everybody in my neighborhood, everybody in Illinois.
So how do we communicate that? We have to go house by house. We have to do messaging by social media, messaging through mail. The city of Chicago has to participate, that this is an opportunity. Many people will feel that I cannot afford to change out my lead service lines. Well, if you say, hey, we can change out your lead service lines, it's not going to be a cost to you. And it's only going to be a benefit to you because now you're going to have cleaner drinking water coming into your house.
But we also need partners at the municipal level, at the state, and in DC to make sure that the funds are available for this work for the next several decades.
I'm also excited that our president has included lead service lines into his infrastructure bill. So we know that the money is there to pay for this.
We have a real opportunity to create thousands of good-paying jobs in every part of the state by tackling lead in drinking water and our water infrastructure.
Our vision was training opportunities to bring people into be those pipe fitters that can change out lead service lines. And so this opportunity is enormous.
The costs of inaction and not addressing the lead and drinking water crisis that we could have in Illinois far outweighs the costs associated with taking action and the costs that we're already seeing, whether it's to our healthcare system, our education system.
And so this is transformation because now we are going into the same communities that have been largely affected by lead and saying to them, hey, this is an opportunity for you to participate in remedying the problem.
Illinois, by passing this legislation and passing this mandate, has an opportunity to be an example for the rest of the country on, how to fix this problem, do it right, and prioritize people. The time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining, right? So as long as the state is serious about this implementation and moves it along in a meaningful manner, I think we're in a position to be a strong leader on this work.
This is not about money. This is about the health of our children, the health of our community, and what is going to cost more, to treat them or to take action right now.
Hi MPC, the Elevate team wants to say thank you for your partnership and hard work to make sure everyone has access to safe and affordable drinking water.
Hello, my name is Melissa Washington, Board Chair for the Metropolitan Planning Council, and I'm so excited to invite you here and welcome you to a second annual luncheon that's done virtually. Although we are not physically together, the connection is strong and the research and the work that's been accomplished is even stronger. This has been a monumental time of connecting with new and existing partners, and for the work that we've accomplished together, we are so grateful. We are also grateful that we've been able to reimagine the future together, a future that's brighter, bolder, and more equitable for the Chicagoland region. We know that we can accomplish so much more together, and for that we are asking for your support. So please donate by going to metroplanning.org/give. Thank you in advance for your support. Together, we know we will accomplish so much more.
Hi, I am Olga Bautista. I am a lifelong resident of the southeast side of Chicago. Our neighborhood is one of the most biodiverse neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. We have that juxtaposed with one of the most busiest ports in Chicago, and then also it's a residential community that is rich with culture, the churches, the festivals that happen in this community, the music, the art. It's fantastic, the way that people come together. I learned that there was these massive piles of petroleum coke that were being stored on the banks of the Calumet River, and it's very, very close to my house, and I was very concerned that my newborn child would be affected negatively, and I started to organize with other community groups and other parents. I mean, we really needed to find out, how were the activities that were happening on the Calumet River impacting our health. We have so many families that have cancer survivors or people who've died of cancer, people with respiratory issues, and all kinds of things like that, when we would go and testify in city council and other places, the information was all anecdotal. We didn't have the data to back it up.
So this is a project really where we were focusing on the realities of environmental racism, right? And this was at the core of it a health equity project where communities of color and communities that have legacies of environmental pollution, they're disproportionately affected. It had a really strong impact on our work.
So we actually went into this process with an idea around bringing in some data about transportation and jobs, maybe bringing in some of the environmental and health aspect. But we did not anticipate going as deep with the community engagement as we went.
Once we really kind of got immersed and we started meeting with our community partners, we realized we really needed to shift the lens, and so we really wanted to change our approach and make sure that the actual research agenda and the questions that we were answering, those were community generated. So I think it was important for us as researchers to realize, okay, we need to decenter ourselves, right? We need to make sure that the actual process and the methods are instead prioritizing the needs of the impacted community members.
It was such a huge difference in how we were participating in this project than how I've been asked to participate in other projects and some of the other folks in the community, because we were being considered as experts in our own lived experience, and that felt really good to be considered as an expert, and also the trust that was being built.
MPC, we want to be very relevant. We want to jump in right when things are happening. But I think for us, balancing at the same time, we're getting this feedback from community, and we're also taking that back to the Department of Planning and saying, this is the direction that this is headed. Is this valuable for you?
But one of our biggest findings was that there is a statistically significant linkage between adult chronic disease, two in particular for the Calumet Industrial Corridor and the surrounding area, and negative health impacts.
So what we saw was that the Calumet Industrial Corridor in particular has worse air pollution than all of the rest of the industrial corridors in Chicago, and we saw higher rates of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and coronary heart disease.
In about halfway through preparing the data and getting all these data sets together, we started to think that we were missing something, that it still wasn't strong enough. And we decided that we wanted to do and add qualitative data and do focus groups in the community.
We're both data scientists, so we love data, we love numbers, but you need to show why those numbers are important for policy really to take place.
Anyone can go to the EPA's Environmental Justice Index and kind of capture the data on respiratory disease, but unless you have that actually grounded in the experience of here's what it's like to then live with that, that's not an ethical kind of research project.
It revealed both what the health impacts are, but then also the reasons why those were happening, the root causes of why we're seeing those impacts down the line.
Now we have this data, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because we see how it's impacted our family and our friends, and it really has to stop. And I think that the way that this data, the data book was able to come together with so much input from so many people.
These patterns that have been this way for a really long time, you need to obviously center the impacted populations in the kinds of policies and the regulations that you're creating, because clearly it's not working.
The Data Book project has been part of a broader journey that MPC is taking towards trying to understand how we are using our seat of power. We know that we're not a community-based organization, we're not trying to fill that role, but taking on more of a role of, being that advocate, being that translator, still being an independent voice and being trusted.
So how and what gets developed, particularly at the neighborhood level, has real impacts on how people live, on how they work, and ultimately their quality of life. By inviting the people who are most impacted by a decision into the planning process, and also giving them an opportunity to inform a decision-making process is really our approach, and that's at the heart of our community-centered participatory planning work at MPC. So it's planning with people and not for people.
I've lived in this neighborhood my whole life. Logan Square, of course, has a really tight-knit community, but there's only so much your community could do for you, housing-wise, and obviously they're building luxury condos here, so they don't have family-size housing.
Parents could not afford the rents. They had to work two shifts. They had to leave their kids home alone, or sometimes the kids had to be responsible of the household, going to school by themselves and do things for themselves. So we start seeing less family faces that had to forcibly move out of the neighborhood.
In 2014, MPC had the opportunity to lead an engagement process in Logan Square around the CTA's parking lot that's adjacent to the Logan Square Blue Line station. And that was really important for residents to have a voice in what could happen at that site.
I would kind of pass by and look and be like, what are the possibilities for what could be here? And how could that help our community?
I was not just one person that feels that way. I was a whole community feeling that way.
And that was transformative in a couple of ways. It not only changed the trajectory of that site, providing needed affordable housing for families, which we see now at Emmett Street, but it also paved the way for policy change for more equitable development in transit-served locations.
For the future of Logan Square, I see walkability, I see inclusion, I see my culture being openly paraded around the neighborhood. A future where I don't have to worry about if my family is not going to live next to me anymore.
My kids get really excited when we walk through Emmett Street because they love their communities. They are Logan Square babies, so they are very excited that more kids are going to come to the neighborhood.
So because of our history in Chicago of economic and racial segregation, when I think about displacement, I often think about it as being on a continuum. So one side is gentrification, and where we're seeing families displaced, moderate and low-income families displaced from communities as they are growing, as they are gaining market value. The other side is where we see sustained disinvestment, where because of a lot of dynamics, redlining, assumptions about markets, white flight, where communities have just been passed over or just really denied investment. And so we need to make sure that we're thinking about how do we restart the conversations around those communities as places of value.
Well, welcome to Washington Heights. One of the huge assets in our community is that there's a lot of single-family home ownership, roughly 67%. We've got this buying power. We've got a median income of around $55,000 per household. We've got the income that would support the kind of retail development that we're looking for. But commercial property, we're nowhere. We're not there. And that's been the barrier to wealth creation, commercial development, entrepreneurship.
The redevelopment of the 95th Street station, that investment was huge for the far south side. But it's not just about investing in the transit infrastructures, you have to invest in the infrastructure around the transit infrastructure.
In African American communities, there hasn't been private investment, so churches historically have taken on that role as being the developer and establishing daycare centers or farmers markets and all those kind of things. And so our mission is to revitalize those empty lots and vacant buildings and restore them with the kind of amenities that other communities have. In 2016, we partnered with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and one of the things this report told us was that $198 million leaks out of the community, meaning residents find other places to spend their money because they want the basic things that other communities have.
One of the things that we're most proud of at MPC is working with a collaborative to really change and help shape the city's equitable transit-oriented development policy. So in a lot of ways, it's leveling the playing field and making sure that lived experience is recognized and valued. Because at the end of the day, if you're a planner or if you're someone who's working kind of at the outskirts of development, you'll work on that development and then you'll go back to your neighborhood and you'll live your life. But the people who are living there have to live with the result of that, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's supportive of what the neighborhood needs or whether it's not. So they should be part of the process. And that's just common sense kind of in my mind, that's just common sense.
What brings us together all around Chicagoland is our transportation system.
I would say a hardworking nature definitely unites all Chicagoans.
The great unifier is a love for food.
I'm very excited that MPC is honoring a great champion of the Chicago region, Marty Nesbitt. I've known Marty since 1993 when we were both selected for Leadership Greater Chicago. Marty's been giving back to Chicago ever since through multiple business and civic leadership roles. Way back in 1959, the Metropolitan Planning Council established the Champion Fighter Award to honor an individual who exemplifies inspiring leadership and fights for positive change for all of us. This year, we're thrilled to honor Marty, someone who has dedicated his career toward closing the racial wealth gap. As co-founder and co-CEO of the Vistria Group, a purpose-driven private investment firm, Marty is the real deal, a true bridge builder and change maker. I'm grateful to Marty for sharing his vision for making Chicago a place that works for everyone. He'll be joined in conversation by his friend and colleague, Mona Sutphin, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff under President Obama. But before we hear from Marty, here's a message from a very special guest.
Hi, everybody. When the Metropolitan Planning Council asked me to reflect on my good friend Marty Nesbitt, I had a hard time figuring out what to say. I could talk about all the times I beat him at golf, or the times I schooled him on the basketball court, even though he is younger than me. But in the end, I decided to talk about how much I love Marty and how much Marty loves the city of Chicago and how very, very deserving he is of this award. Chicago's always been a special place for Michelle and me. It's where I met that love of my life. It's where our kids were born. It's where we started our life together. But as all of you know, Chicago also has a complicated history. Long-standing segregation has contributed to disparities in job opportunities and housing, education, and healthcare and public safety. In cities like Chicago, our fate is connected, and yet too often we live in separate worlds, with lost income, lost lives, and lost potential. But the good news is that progress is possible, and right now, people across the city are asking important questions and doing their part to make Chicago what we know it can be. And one of those people is Marty Nesbitt. As I said, I've known Marty a long time. We met on the basketball court back when we were both a little younger, had a little less gray hair, and had a little more game. And when Marty sees something that doesn't make sense, I learned he was persistent. He asks why, and he asks why not. And if he doesn't get a good answer, he asks again, and he keeps on going. And that skill has served Marty well throughout his career. But it's also helped him serve this city, whether it's in business or in his work with the Chicago Housing Authority or Big Brothers Big Sisters. Marty has always tried to figure out who the system is designed to serve and who it should be serving. And when he sees an opportunity to make a difference, Marty has always stepped up to the challenge. It's why Michelle and I asked Marty to chair the Obama Foundation, which will be housed in the new Obama Presidential Center, breaking ground in Jackson Park this fall. With his help, our goal is to inspire the next generation of leaders, including here in Chicago, and lift up the South Side community that has given us so much, and hopefully to bridge some of the gaps that exist in our great city. So Marty, congratulations, my friend, on this well-deserved award. And thanks to everybody at the Metropolitan Planning Council for everything you're doing each and every day to strengthen the city we love.
Amazing. This is fantastic. And Marty, congratulations on this honor. It's incredible. Really proud of you. Everyone really wants to acknowledge your accomplishments. It's fantastic.
Well, it's such an honor to be interviewed by you, Mona. Obviously, we've been friends for a long time now through the Obama world and your great service as a senior advisor on policy issues. And it's been also really fun collaborating with you on Vistria and what we're trying to do to use investment capital to make the world a better place. And so you've been a perfect partner on that, and it's a real honor to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah. So Marty, we've been having this conversation now for several years, and
Right.
you see this in Chicago as well, as we're coming out of the pandemic, which is this challenge about how to realize the American dream for so many Americans, and the risks if we get it wrong, that we accidentally topple the best system that modern world has ever come up with in the form of democracy and capitalism. So you want to just say a little bit about where you think we are?
You've heard me say this forever now that, I think democracy and capitalism make up the greatest socioeconomic construct in the history of the world, but they're not perfect. And we see democracies under duress all over the world. We see capitalism strained with the wealth gap widening, the haves and have-nots, the path to sort of prosperity being closed off to many. and it's just not sustainable. And the belief that we, look, democracy kind of needs crisis to solve problems. But I believe that the participants in capitalism, recognize that strong communities, strong societies are really the golden goose. It's the platform that allows us all to have a better standard of living, a higher quality of life. We have to nurture the golden goose. And so we have to make these communities stronger. There has to be opportunity, have to thrive.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the whole thing collapsed, right? We talked about this, like the American dream has to be real. It can't just be a dream.
Correct.
Right? It has to be real. Otherwise, the system that doesn't work.
Yeah. It's really interesting to say this because one of the things I find so compelling about private equity is that a lot of the businesses, obviously, certainly in Vistary's portfolio, are smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses. The vast majority of Americans work in private enterprises, smaller businesses, and I think there's a real opportunity for creativity and innovation because those companies are very, very deeply anchored in their communities in a way that some of the bigger employers across the country just really can't be, right? When you have 6,000 locations or whatever. And I feel like, but I don't know if you would agree with this or not, that coming out of the racial reckoning around George Floyd and out of the pandemic, that the business community is realizing nobody is really going to tackle this on their own without the push of the business community to get folks there. And hopefully that'll last. I don't know if that resonates with you, if you see that happening or not.
I think so. I mean, for me, there's this deep belief and recognition that while it makes me feel good to do this, and it's the right thing to do, there's also an incredible value proposition, right? And I think these smaller businesses recognize this, is that if the communities around us prosper, our business is worth more.
Right.
Our business does better. And so that reality, I think, when we started the firm 8-9 years ago, we said, look, if we don't figure this out, it's pitchforks and torches, right?
And guess what?
In 2020, it was pitchforks and torches. And so, there are things you can do if you think about your business and the value proposition that you can do practically right away to make a difference. We can say, like, look, stop all of our searches, hiring searches. Like, we're going to rethink this in a way that we're going to hire people that represent the community. We believe that a diverse company is better, performs better, we get better decisions, better outcomes, and we're going to invest in that. The second thing we can do is we can look at all of our capital projects and say, can we be more thoughtful about the way we deploy this capital? Can we hire diverse vendors? Can we hire vendors from rural communities that might need the inflow into their neighborhoods and make them better, more resilient, better employers? And then the third thing that we all can do is we can reach out to our public officials and say, hey, you know what? This is important to us. And we're investing in it within our own company, but we also know that you have to be our partner, and we're willing to help invest in your efforts on equity around sort of education and health equity and all the things that are important for citizens of these communities. And by the way, we're watching how you do. And if there is an authentic effort to make this progress, we will continue to support you. But if there's not, and if the community's not committed to this, there's a chance that we could vote with our feet and move to a community that shares our values around these issues.
And one of the things we've been talking about a lot is this next generation is so much more committed to these issues around equity and inclusion than our generation really was, I think, has been. And really willing to move. So if you are a corporate and you say your corporate values are X and you're doing Y,
they're going
to call you out on it. Whereas
sure
in the
will.
old days, all that pressure was coming from the outside. It was literally people marching or complaining. Now it's coming from the inside and the outside. And there's nothing that, as you know, terrifies a CEO more than to lose out on recruiting or the talent they have, right?
No.
Because people have options. They can go elsewhere.
If the big employers in Chicago haven't figured it out, but the big employers in New
York
have, or Indianapolis have, or Milwaukee have, guess what?
Right.
We're going to lose a lot of really good people in that momentum to sort of look. We all believe and want America to be what our forefathers really envisioned, right? And so, there's this sort of collective aspiration for this country that I think we all share. We got to keep moving that direction, and we got to move, I think, quicker
in that direction.
than we have.
I mean, that's been my concern, is that the pace of change may feel fast to some,
right,
but is it fast enough to meet the moment?
Right.
Because the pressure is there. And to your
Right.
point about the American dream being real,
Right.
I think many people look at this and say, there's no way forward for me.
We accept our obligation to make the American dream a reality, and that we have to work on it. It's like I always say, like, no child should have to be as lucky as I was.
Tell me, like, where that sense comes from, why you feel like you were lucky, what you think that says about opportunity here?
Yeah, look, I when I was coming up, there was sort of desegregation in schools, and my mother didn't know a lot. She wasn't a college graduate herself at the time, but she knew just instinctively that, you know what, I think the white kids are probably getting a better education than mine. So you're getting on a bus every day and you're going to that school. So that was the first thing that happened. And it was just lucky that I had a mother who was like, I don't know this to be a fact, but my instincts are telling me that they're getting a better education. And so
everybody's fighting about it, so they're probably
right. Yeah, everybody's fighting about it.
Like
so
a
there
bad
must be
idea,
something good out
something
there.
good on the other side, right?
So I went to the school, and then I tried to do as well as I could, and there was a counselor, another luck, that came to me and said, you should try to get this scholarship. And so I competed for the scholarship, which was offered to me, right? But what I learned later was that I actually was second place.
Oh.
But the person who won the scholarship, his father got a promotion, and his mother got a promotion. They were both teachers, and they made too much money for him to get the scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So they came and they gave it to me, right? And then there were just sort of a series of people when I went to this private school that came into my life that just sort of said, like, look, we will not let you fail. And, when I look back at the boys my age from my community, there are no good outcomes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there were just this sort of series of sort of lucky events that happened to me that changed the trajectory of my life. And then, then the luck continued, right? I met my wife in business school, and she's way smarter than me.
Talk a little bit about the partnership between MPC, the business community, local community, on how to help bridge those gaps and really have the impact that I think the business community in Chicago is incredibly powerful, could have on the whole city, obviously.
I mean, I think that's a role that MPC has played for a long time, but just sort of being that collaborator, that link between the community and the business community and the political community, bringing them together and saying, helping coalesce around a plan. Like, here are the facts, here are the opportunities, here's some ideas on the way this approach. Can we get everybody in a room and think about these things? I think it's a powerful role that the organization plays, and I think we all have to sort of say, get engaged, right? And become committed to it. I mean, at the end of the day, they call you a leader for a reason, right? And it's about sort of showing commitment and conviction and making the first move and having a belief that the right thing is better for us all, and moving in that direction. And I think MPC plays a very important role in sort of bringing those entities together for that kind of co-leadership, if you will.
Yeah, and I'll just and the conversation of the future of capitalism. When we first started having this conversation, I remember we said, well, we feel strongly about this. We don't know if other people are necessarily going to agree, but if we don't do something about it, who else is going to do anything about it?
Who will? Right.
It turns out, and there are many, many more people who care about this even than I think we thought at the beginning, who are willing to take the time and effort, and it's not a lot of time, but time to think about this and really take the time it needs in order for the whole system to work better. So I've been really encouraged by the response, actually.
You remember there was, we won't name names, but we had some pretty high profile people in the first room, and there was a lot of skepticism, right? Like,
what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Oh.
Like, no, business people are never going to do this, right? And I thought, to myself, like, business people are business people. And when the reality sets in that a strong society, a stable society, is the goose that lays the golden egg. They will live up to their obligation to nurture it.
Yeah.
It's got to have clean air to breathe. It's got to have clean water to drink. It has to have a roof over its head. It has to be well educated, and it has to have opportunity. Otherwise, it will stop laying the golden egg, which is the opportunity for all of us to create a higher standard of living and a better quality of life.
Yeah, it's totally well put.
Don't kill the golden goose.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for sitting down and having this conversation.
I'm really glad we were able to have it. As always, it's been great.
Thanks, MPC.
Yeah, thank you, MPC, and congratulations again on the award.
Thank you. This is about the health of our children, the health of our community, and what is going to cost more, to treat them or to take action right now.
We have this data, and it's heartbreaking. We're going to be able to create new policies in the city of Chicago that are going to protect these vulnerable communities.
In a lot of ways, it's leveling the playing field and making sure that lived experience is recognized and valued.